When a man walks with inner peace, quiet confidence, and self-control, the world feels his presence long before he speaks. A woman never forgets a man who lives by principles instead of impulses. She remembers a man whose actions reveal discipline, whose silence shows strength, and whose character speaks louder than any charm. Today, we explore the timeless Stoic qualities that make a man unforgettable, the qualities that don't fade with age, money, or appearance, but stay carved into memory. Before we begin, take a moment to subscribe to this channel so you never miss the wisdom, power, and calm we share here. A man becomes unforgettable when he masters his emotions instead of letting his emotions master him. A woman never forgets the man who stays grounded even in chaos, who listens before reacting, who responds from clarity instead of anger. In a world full of noise, he becomes the calm. In a world full of ego, he becomes the one who sees clearly. Stoicism teaches that emotional control is not the absence of feeling but the mastery of response. And a man who carries this mastery becomes a presence a woman cannot ignore or erase. A man becomes impossible to forget when he remains consistent even when no one is watching. Consistency is a rare form of loyalty, loyalty to one's values, one's growth, and one's purpose. A woman remembers the man who does what he says, who keeps his promises, who shows up with the same discipline on the quiet days and the busy days. Consistency creates trust, and trust creates memory. When your actions reflect reliability, you stand out in a world where many only talk. A man stays unforgettable when he protects his peace. Not by isolation, but by intention. He chooses what deserves his energy, his time, and his mind. He doesn't chase chaos, he doesn't argue for ego, and he doesn't seek validation. A woman remembers the man who respects himself enough to walk away from disrespect, excuses, and unnecessary battles. He becomes a symbol of self-worth, a reflection of a life lived with boundaries and clarity. A man becomes unforgettable when he treats others with kindness without losing his strength. Stoicism teaches that kindness is a virtue, but not weakness. A woman remembers the man who was firm but gentle, disciplined but compassionate, powerful yet considerate. Because true strength is not in domination but in self-control. Anyone can be harsh. The unforgettable man chooses grace, balance, and quiet authority. A man cannot be forgotten when he values purpose over pleasure. He is driven by mission, not distraction, by improvement, not indulgence. His discipline becomes attractive, his ambition inspiring, his focus magnetic. A woman remembers the man who dedicates himself to becoming better, not for applause but for self-mastery. He becomes a reminder of what disciplined masculinity looks like. A man stays forever in memory when he listens, not with impatience, not with pre-planned answers, but with presence. In a world where most people only wait for their turn to speak, the man who listens deeply becomes different. He becomes safe. He becomes respected. He becomes rare. A woman never forgets the man who understands her mind, hears her silence, and sees beyond her words. Listening is attention, and attention is a gift she remembers long after you're gone. If this message speaks to your spirit, remember that becoming unforgettable is not about performing. It is about character, a life lived with discipline, calm, purpose, and presence. These qualities cannot be faked, and that is why they cannot be forgotten. If you want more powerful Stoic wisdom like this, make sure you subscribe to this channel. Your support helps us grow, and it allows more people to discover this path of strength and stillness. A man becomes unforgettable when his silence carries more meaning than another man's speeches. His silence is not avoidance, nor weakness, nor indifference. His silence is awareness, control, and observation. A woman remembers the man who pauses before reacting, who thinks before speaking, who chooses wisdom over impulse. Silence is the language of depth. It shows that he is not controlled by the moment, he controls the moment. In a world that praises loudness, the man who speaks with intention stands out like a calm fire in the dark, steady, warm, powerful, and unforgettable. A man carves himself into memory when he refuses to betray his values, even when it is easier to be someone else. A woman remembers the man who stays rooted in integrity, who doesn't change his principles for approval, attention, or temporary pleasure. Stoicism teaches that character is the true currency of life, and a man who guards his values becomes rare. He becomes the kind of man whose presence leaves an impact and whose absence leaves an echo. When you stand firm in what you believe, you leave a mark deeper than charm, deeper than looks, deeper than words. You leave the mark of authenticity. A man becomes unforgettable when he carries himself with quiet discipline. Not the discipline used to impress others, but the discipline used to master himself. Discipline in the way he speaks, the way he works, the way he treats others, the way he handles setbacks. A woman remembers the man who rises early, who stays committed to his goals, who doesn't break under pressure, who builds himself every day. She remembers the man who shows that discipline is not a burden but a form of freedom, the freedom to be in control of your life instead of a victim of your habits. Discipline is magnetic because it is rare, and what is rare becomes unforgettable. A man becomes unforgettable when he knows how to lead without controlling, and guide without forcing. Leadership is not dominance, it is direction. A woman remembers the man who leads with calm confidence, not with ego. A man who leads with example, not demands. A man who leads with clarity, not chaos. Stoicism teaches that leadership begins with the self, your emotions, your thoughts, your actions. When you lead yourself, you naturally lead others. This kind of leadership is gentle, powerful, and lasting. It is the type of influence that lingers long after your presence fades. A man stays in a woman's memory when he values truth over image. He doesn't pretend to be perfect, he doesn't hide behind masks, and he doesn't chase validation. Instead, he is honest about who he is, what he feels, what he wants, and what he stands for. This honesty creates trust, and trust creates a connection that remains even across silence, time, or distance. The man who stands with truth becomes a pillar in her memory, stable, clear, and real. People forget illusions, but they never forget authenticity. A man becomes unforgettable when he treats every moment as a chance to become better. Growth is attractive. Growth is powerful. Growth is memorable. A woman remembers the man who evolves, who outgrows his weaknesses, who learns from mistakes, who refuses to stay stagnant. She remembers the man who reinvents himself not for attention but for self-respect. Stoicism teaches that the greatest journey is the one within, and the man who walks that path stands apart from the rest. His transformation becomes a story she never forgets. His progress becomes a reflection of what is possible. His growth becomes part of his legacy. A man becomes unforgettable when he carries an aura of emotional safety. A woman remembers the man who creates a space where she doesn't have to perform, pretend, or shrink. Safety is not softness, it is stability. It is the quiet assurance that he will not use her vulnerability against her. It is the patience to let her speak without interruption. It is the maturity to handle disagreements without disrespect. Stoicism teaches that the strongest man is the one who has mastered himself, and a self-mastered man becomes a safe harbor. Not because he fixes everything, but because his presence makes everything feel less heavy. This kind of presence imprints itself deeply into memory. A man becomes unforgettable when he refuses to be controlled by external validation. He doesn't need applause to feel valuable. He doesn't need attention to feel confident. He doesn't crave approval to feel worthy. His self-esteem comes from within, from his discipline, his actions, his standards, and his principles. A woman remembers the man who doesn't bend just to be liked, who doesn't chase attention, who doesn't lose himself trying to impress. Stoicism teaches that peace comes from independence. Independence from praise, from opinions, from judgment. When a man lives this way, he stands out in a world desperate for validation. He becomes unshakable. He becomes unforgettable. A man becomes unforgettable when his presence brings direction instead of confusion. Many men create uncertainty in their intentions, their actions, their words, their consistency. But a stoic man brings clarity. He knows what he wants, and his actions align with his intentions. He communicates honestly, without games or hidden motives. A woman remembers the man who does not confuse her heart, who does not send mixed signals, who does not treat connection like a distraction. Instead, he brings stability, and stability is a rare form of strength that leaves a lasting impression. A man becomes unforgettable when he gives without expecting anything in return. Not gifts, but presence. Not flattery, but honesty. Not performance, but authenticity. He gives by listening, by showing respect, by being present, by offering support without control. Stoicism teaches that true generosity is not measured by what leaves your hands, but by what leaves your heart. A woman remembers the man whose kindness was genuine, whose intentions were pure, whose presence was meaningful. These acts may seem small, but they carve themselves into the memory because they come from a place of sincerity, a quality that cannot be faked. A man becomes unforgettable when he can walk away with dignity. Not out of anger, not out of pride, but from self-respect. Stoicism teaches that you cannot control the actions of others, only your response. A woman remembers the man who doesn't beg for attention, who doesn't cling to situations that drain him, who doesn't fight to stay where he is no longer valued. The ability to walk away is not coldness, it is clarity. It shows that he knows his worth. It shows that he is whole, not half. A man who can walk away when necessary becomes a symbol of strength, and strength is unforgettable. A man becomes unforgettable when he practices restraint in a world that worships indulgence. He does not react to everything. He does not pursue every impulse. He does not allow desire to control him. His restraint is not repression but wisdom. It shows maturity, discernment, and discipline. A woman remembers the man who thinks before acting, who pauses before deciding, who chooses principle over pleasure. His restraint creates respect, and respect creates memory. Stoicism teaches that the strongest man is the one who conquers himself, and self-conquest is a legacy that never fades. A man becomes unforgettable when he refuses to be moved by temporary emotions. He understands that reacting in the heat of the moment often destroys what calm reflection could have saved. Stoicism teaches that emotions are natural, but actions must be deliberate. A woman remembers the man who remains centered even when life tests him, who doesn't crumble under stress, who doesn't allow anger, jealousy, or fear to dictate his behavior. She remembers the man who breathes before speaking, who observes before reacting, who thinks before deciding. And powerful form of security, one that stays in her memory long after the moment has passed. A man becomes unforgettable when he holds himself to a high standard, even when others are content with mediocrity. He doesn't seek to be better than other men, he seeks to be better than his past self. This commitment to self-improvement radiates through everything he does: his work, his discipline, his presence, his character. A woman remembers the man who constantly grows, who evolves, who refuses to stay stagnant. She remembers how his ambition inspired hers, how his commitment awakened her own, how his dedication raised the energy of everything around him. Growth is magnetic, and a man who grows with purpose becomes impossible to forget. A man becomes unforgettable when he lives with purpose instead of distraction. Most people wander through life, chasing pleasures, trends, and validation. But the Stoic man moves with intention. Every step has meaning. Every choice has direction. He knows what he is building, who he is becoming, and why he walks the path he walks. A woman remembers the man with vision, the man who stands for something, the man who moves with conviction. Purpose is a powerful fragrance, subtle, deep, unforgettable. It lingers long after the man himself has left the room. A man becomes unforgettable when he carries himself with humility. Not the fragile humility that seeks praise for being humble, but the silent humility of someone who knows his strength and does not need to announce it. Stoicism teaches that the wise man is aware of how much he still has to learn. A woman remembers the man who listens even when he could speak, who admits when he is wrong, who doesn't need to dominate conversations to prove his intelligence. Humility is a quiet virtue, but it resonates loudly in memory. The man who is both strong and humble becomes a paradox that the mind holds onto. A man becomes unforgettable when he handles conflict with maturity rather than ego. Most people argue to win. The Stoic man seeks understanding. He doesn't fight to dominate, he communicates to resolve. He doesn't yell to be heard, he speaks to connect. A woman remembers the man who stays calm in disagreement, who doesn't belittle, who doesn't attack, who doesn't withdraw in silence. His maturity becomes rare, his patience becomes admirable, and his ability to de-escalate with wisdom becomes a quality she carries in her memory as a standard. Maturity is one of the most attractive forms of strength, and strength is unforgettable. A man becomes unforgettable when he brings peace instead of chaos. His presence feels like a steady breath in a world filled with noise. His energy does not drain, it balances. He does not complicate life, he simplifies it. He does not create storms, he calms them. Stoicism teaches that inner peace is more valuable than any external achievement. A woman remembers the man whose presence made her feel centered, whose voice eased tension, whose energy softened the world around him. Peace is rare, and the one who carries it becomes rare. And what is rare stays in memory. A man becomes unforgettable when he brings peace instead of chaos. His presence feels like a steady breath in a world filled with noise. His energy does not drain, it balances. He does not complicate life, he simplifies it. He does not create storms, he calms them. Stoicism teaches that inner peace is more valuable than any external achievement. A woman remembers the man whose presence made her feel centered, whose voice eased tension, whose energy softened the world around him. Peace is rare, and the one who carries it becomes rare. And what is rare stays in memory. The man who becomes a sanctuary, a calm space, a steady force, leaves an imprint deeper than excitement, deeper than attraction, deeper than desire. He becomes unforgettable not because he tries to be, but because he lives with intention, discipline, balance, and an unshakable inner world. A man becomes unforgettable when he shows emotional mastery, the deeper form of strength that comes from controlling his inner world rather than trying to control everything around him. This kind of man speaks with intention, reacts with clarity, and refuses to let anger, fear, or insecurity dictate his actions. He does not explode under pressure, nor does he crumble when life becomes heavy. Instead, he breathes, observes, and responds with a calm mind. He does not explode under pressure, nor does he crumble when life becomes heavy. Instead, he breathes, observes, and responds with a calm mind. Women remember this kind of man because emotional control creates a sense of trust, safety, and stability. It shows maturity, discipline, and confidence. Emotional mastery is not the absence of feeling but the ability to regulate those feelings so they do not become destructive. This man knows how to communicate without shouting, listen without interrupting, and understand without assuming. He handles conflict without cruelty, disappointment without bitterness, and success without arrogance. His steadiness becomes a form of peace, and peace is unforgettable. A man becomes unforgettable when he embodies emotional mastery in every season of life. This level of control isn't about suppressing feelings, it's about guiding them. It's the ability to remain balanced when tested, to stay thoughtful when provoked, and to act from logic rather than impulse. A woman remembers the man who handles difficulty with grace, who doesn't allow anger to cloud his judgment, who doesn't speak out of wounded pride. His calm becomes a shelter. His presence becomes grounding. His restraint shows his inner strength. Emotional mastery is the cornerstone of lasting respect, and it leaves an imprint because it reflects maturity, wisdom, and a deep understanding of self. In a world where many operate from reactivity, the man who acts from clarity becomes unforgettable. Subscribe to this channel if you want to master emotional stability and become the grounded presence people admire. A man becomes unforgettable when his consistency becomes a lifestyle, not a temporary performance. He is reliable in his actions, dependable in his word, and steady in his commitments. He rises each day with the same discipline, the same focus, the same determination. He is not swayed by mood swings, temptations, or distractions. He honors his promises because he sees them as reflections of his character. Consistency makes him trustworthy, and trustworthiness makes him memorable. Women do not forget the man who stays true regardless of circumstances, who doesn't shift his behavior like the wind, who shows loyalty to his values. His effort is not conditional. His discipline is not seasonal. His dedication is not situational. This kind of consistency is rare, and rare men leave lasting impressions. Subscribe for more content that strengthens your consistency and personal discipline. A man becomes unforgettable when his presence brings stillness to those around him. His calm energy is not coldness, it is a form of maturity that comes from understanding that inner peace is stronger than external chaos. He doesn't bring unnecessary storms. He doesn't add tension. He doesn't escalate conflict. Instead, he diffuses it. He listens. He thinks. He moves with intention. Women remember the man who brings calm into their lives because calm is oxygen in a world full of noise. His steadiness makes him magnetic. His tranquility makes him refreshing. His peaceful aura becomes something they carry in their memory long after the moment has passed. When he speaks, his words carry weight because they come from a still mind. Subscribe to this channel for more guidance on becoming the calm force that others naturally gravitate toward. A man becomes unforgettable when his integrity remains unshaken even when tested. He chooses truth over convenience, principle over pleasure, and honesty over manipulation. This is the man who remains loyal to his morals whether alone or in company. Integrity is not a performance, it is a way of life. Women remember the man who is consistent in his ethics, who doesn't say one thing and do another, who doesn't betray his identity for acceptance. His integrity makes him trustworthy. His sincerity makes him whole. His character makes him unforgettable. He becomes the kind of man whose presence raises the standard for everyone around him. Subscribe for more insights on cultivating a life of honor, honesty, and unbreakable character. A man becomes unforgettable when his life is driven by purpose. Purpose gives him direction, grounding, and a vision for the future. He doesn't drift. He doesn't wander. He moves with clarity, ambition, and intention. Women remember the man who is building something meaningful with his life, whether it is a career, a mission, a craft, a passion, or a higher calling. His purpose creates momentum, and his momentum inspires others. His goals shape him into a disciplined, driven, and focused man. Purpose gives him depth. It gives him power. It gives him identity. This type of man stands out because he knows where he is going, and that certainty becomes unforgettable. Subscribe to this channel to discover how to build, sharpen, and maintain a powerful sense of purpose. A man becomes unforgettable when he listens with the kind of attentiveness that is rare today. He listens not to reply but to understand. He listens with curiosity, patience, and presence. He makes people feel valued, not dismissed. He understands that listening is not weakness but strength, because awareness is a form of power. Women remember the man who listens because being heard is one of the deepest human desires. His attention creates connection. His presence creates warmth. His understanding creates trust. Listening reveals emotional intelligence, and emotional intelligence leaves a strong imprint. Subscribe to this channel to learn how to build deeper communication, inner awareness, and presence that truly changes your relationships. Your support helps this message reach more people, and together, we rise with wisdom, discipline, and purpose.